So Mike Lazaro, who just sold iMedia to Salesforce, he was posting on Facebook, like, who's still there? This is the event for marketers, getting really excited. And a few days into the show, I was saying, just to take a look at some of the trends going on, you see touchscreen devices are just absolutely taking over. So this data from Compete here, so you have tablets. I mean, this isn't even looking at what's happening in the smaller devices with all the touch screens in your pockets right now. Connected TVs, any TV that's actually connected to the internet. So there's even a difference between connected TVs and smart TVs that are actually internet enabled. Connected TVs might have a Roku or Xbox hooked up, but that's becoming a really popular way to access content. As far as the buzz going on, you see that televisions were getting just a lot of the conversation out there, and for good reason. I mean, they're amazing, amazing showpieces. But again, for how you're doing your jobs, that might not matter so much, and we'll go into that in just a second. So Samsung deservedly tops a lot of the brand mentions. Even companies like Google and Apple, which were very prominent at the show, even without necessarily exhibiting there. So interesting to see which of the brands that are paying for the space and which are the ones that are just kind of brand jacking that conversation. So by a few days into the show, I had like 100+ slides I was putting together and hundreds of photographs and just trying to make sense of all of this stuff I was seeing across miles and miles of exhibition space and days of conversations. And so I scrawled something on the back of this napkin that was a little less legible. It included a swear word that wasn't appropriate, but it turned into this CES matrix. And just for a slightly more clear form of it, when I got back, it was fun hearing Jim talk about awesomeness. And so having that on one scale and relevance to marketers on the other. And this was how I was able to start framing all of the massive amounts of content I was seeing there. So just to give a few quick examples, you have televisions in the bottom left corner there, right? Like the sharp 8K, high def, high res, beautiful showpiece. You could just stand there watching bees swarm for hours. And yet, even those of you who are focused on TV buying or production, really is not going to change your job. It's evolutionary, great. Top left, you had some amazing devices there, these brainwave scanners. Like, it actually read your mind. You could control digital media with it, so you'd be able to control actual electronic devices and others just by thinking about them. It is mind-blowing, pretty freaking cool, but it also is going to be a long time before that's like kind of built into every iPhone and light switch. Then over on the other side, you've got the Samsung Ad Hub. So you've got this ad network, not necessarily the sexiest thing in the world, and it's still, for an electronics manufacturer to start selling in an ad network becomes really tough, but Samsung does have the scale in TVs and mobile devices and some really interesting pioneering technology in voice search and other means that makes this now something that is starting to matter and really relevant for how a lot of you are going about your job. So I'm going to be really ambitious in the next few minutes that I've got and give a taste of 5 major CES themes for diving a little deeper. Welcome more so over lunch and beer later, but let's just dive in. First, every screen can be the first screen now. So this is amazing, and I was talking to someone about this yesterday. He's like, yeah, every TV was right next to the PCs and the smartphones, and so this is very typical. It used to be that everything was over in its own corner, and now all these devices really are communicating with each other. It's amazing how quickly that happened and how this is something dramatically different from what we'd seen before. I'm a sucker for cinemagram, so I was actually searching quite a bit for GIFs from the show before I realized I could make so many of my own. But you have these screens that are tablets. It doesn't even matter. I mean, the worst buzzword of the show by far, one of the worst buzzwords I've ever heard was the phablet. With a PH. I mean, terrible, terrible stuff. But it just means that we don't even know what to call these screens anymore. And things like that, like, oh, now I got a 20-inch tablet here and I'm playing Monopoly on it. Like, I have no idea, but it just, all of these things are screens, and so you could do more stuff with them. And we're going to worry about less about defining them and more about creating media experiences that translate across them. Samsung mentioned in this, so just having these devices that interact with each other so well, even doing their own things like their own version of Shazam that they're having, so all their products can work well together and talk to each other. A lot of fascinating stuff going on with them. So we've got all these kinds of new screens and things like that. So there are a lot of new inputs. Going to require a lot of new kinds of marketing. So has anyone pre-ordered this device? There might be a few folks at the table over there. The Leap gesture controller here. So little hockey puck-sized device. And for $70 now, we'll make your laptop gesture enabled. And I really recommend spending a little time on their site and going through the demo reel, because it's fascinating what you could do when you can actually start having these gestures in 3D. And for people like me who like to talk with their hands, it's going to be a really, really dangerous computing device. You had TVs that you could control with your eyes, and so as if I guess if your spouse is sleeping, you could just kind of like blink and stuff and change channels. That could be really fun. This is something that we're seeing like from Panasonic and Netflix and others. A lot of these pilots of now when you walk in the room and it's not just like, so you have a 2-year-old, so it instantly starts playing lots of Dora the Explorer. No, it'll start recognizing who you are and customizing the content and recommendations accordingly. So I think when you have things like this, facial recognition could easily be really creepy, or it can be really valuable when it starts providing some relevant content like that. Then you have cars becoming platforms. We saw a taste of this in the video. I really loved Mark Benioff's keynote from Salesforce during the Brand Matters talk. And so he was saying, why is the car not an app for your mobile device? And is this like one of those moments where I'm still trying to process exactly the implications of this. Now, you see what Ford is doing. They've done a phenomenal job bringing all these partners to them. So it's more like all these devices are apps for your car. So they've got this other take to it. Really amazing. You've seen the kinds of, the spread of the partners. Like probably anyone in this room that's not a direct competitor to them, they'd be up for working with in some way. It's really staggering. Now, they're still not making their Ford cars an app for any one of the devices out there, but that may well be what we're going to see in 2014. So onboard diagnostics. This is an area where I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the next couple of years. So any car since '96 has this little socket in it that you could just plug one of these things in. Normally, mechanics have been using it so far to diagnose your car. Now, insurance companies are rolling out with these to just measure safety and things like that. Now you have companies like Dash, this startup that's really fascinating. That's not just taking the info from the car itself, but with these apps that they are piloting right now, it's taking in things like, what's the weather like, what music are you listening to, and what your social network is, and bring this all together for everything from helping you be a more safer driver using game mechanics to having some more Foursquare type things like to share where your trips are and where you're going. So I think we're just going to see a lot of stuff happening there. So for years, I'd have fun geeking out around the office talking about the Internet of Things. And this is something that just made me sound geekier than everyone else. So it was a really easy thing to talk about and just helped me keep my emerging media cred. Well, this year something pretty dramatic happened where it was all about these connected devices. And now this stuff is starting to go so mainstream that Lowe's, I thought, was one of the most impressive companies at CES. It was actually marketing this whole Iris system where it basically has the Better Homes and Gardens seal. So any one of these technologies that's out there for detecting where your pet is or making sure an elderly relative is all right, to seeing if there's moisture in your basement or something like that that you need to watch. So any of these companies can come to Lowe's and say, we want our device part of the Iris system. Lowe's will make sure they all work together and then package those for consumers to really make sure any one of their customers can actually buy them. Really, really interesting. So we saw a bit about the internet fridges, and okay, some of this stuff is overrated and it gets talked about every year, but as you start having these fridges that maybe it makes it a little easier to to know when your milk's going bad or get some recipes. Or I mean, I love some of the laundry machines that will just have an app that go with them to tell you when your clothes are ready. And this is something that can save a very busy parent or even a college student a lot of time, and so provide some great value there and some new brand experiences. The Happy Fork was maybe the most buzzed about product from CES, and I mean, kind of crazy, a $100 fork that looks like a Barbie accessory, and yet you can plug this into your computer to see how quickly you're eating. It reminds me, I don't know if anyone had ever read the children's book. It's a spoon, not a shovel, but for eaters like that, it was a great read. I used to read to my nephew, not for me, but we're just seeing this kind of thing where you have dashboards for literally everything happening, and any device can be internet enabled. I also love Colbert's take. What's the point of consumer technology that stops you from consuming? So I know that'll resonate with people here. Bespoke bites. If you see my watch here, it's just this old swatch that doesn't connect to anything. But the Pebble, this had $10 million in funding before it even launched. So a lot of connectivity going into this very hot product. You have wearable health monitors. So for those of you who were out late at the bar last night, just drinking and raising the beer glass was able to get your Nike fuel score up. Now you've got the Fitbit and some of the body wave and a lot of technologies just trying to push this further. Google Glass, also really, really interesting product with internet-enabled glasses, but now you have companies like Vuzix that are trying to compete and will have a product in market sooner. So a lot of possibilities here. Welcome staying in touch and talking more during the show, and thanks a lot. I was as cynical as everyone, but was pretty much on board with what